So we shall start the lecture now. Can you all hear me? Can you raise your hand if you can hear me? Okay. So today we have to continue the previous lesson. So lesson is on directors and the board structure. So in that we will starting with the corporate officers. So today's lecture I'll be rushing a bit because we have to cover this lesson and also the other lesson that is also on board structure. So both the lessons we'll be covering. So I'll have to rush a little bit. I think when it comes to board and the its structure, we have a lot of things we have discussed, but it was then and there when we're talking about stakeholders, we discussed some of it, and the theories, concepts also, we talked a lot more about board and the board structures. So all of these things that we discussed then and there is taken into one lesson, and I'll more or less repeating these things in a more structured manner. So when it comes to corporate officers, I think this is the first time that we'll be discussing of this. Corporate officers are basically of two types. One is the directors, the other one is the company secretary. So here, board of directors, we have discussed enough about. The new one that we have not discussed is about the company secretary. So company secretary has a defined role, and it is a very important position in an organization. So this is not just when you talk about a secretary, first thing that comes to our mind is that whether this is a clerical work, a clerical worker. Well, it is not. Secretary is not a clerical worker. It's a good position which has to be recruited for lot of qualifications, with lot of qualifications. And it says that this is secretary is a legal officer. It's a legal officer. So these are the officer in relation to a body. Corporate includes a director or a manager. Secretary includes any person occupying the position. No, it's not the officer. So director is an officer. Secretary is another particular person that is responsible for maintaining books, records, and communication. He is the person that is communicate between directors and the shareholders. Whenever there are meetings or any of a kind, uh, the communication link between the directors and the shareholders is the company secretary. So company secretary record meetings, meeting minutes, and make it available to the directors and the shareholders. And that particular person is mm, there to send notifications, send informations about annual general meetings and the like. So basically, it's a huge role, a qualified person, a legal officer. Particularly, most of the secretaries are qualified lawyers. Most of in Sri Lankan context, most of the secretaries are qualified lawyers. So they have lots of legal documents to handle, books to maintain, and basically to have the link, connection link, combining link between the directors and the shareholders. So this question is, what does the board does? Well, the role of the board in detail. So we know what the role is. In essence, what the board does is they have to understand the aspiration of the shareholders. What does the shareholder wants? And once the aspiration is communicated, what they would do is board would convert it into business terms, such as for vision, mission, objectives, and the like. And then whatever the aspiration, once the aspiration is converted into the business terms, board communicate it to the managers, and they make it work. Managers get all the resources, plan, organize, manage, control, and everything they do, and try to achieve the vision mission that is set by the board, which was formulated through the aspiration of the shareholders. So that is what the basic role of a board is, understanding shareholders' aspiration. Howsoever, when we look at it, when understanding the shareholders' aspiration and achieving the shareholders' aspiration can be further identified with main some activities. This whole process of understanding shareholder aspiration and formulating strategies to reporting back to the shareholders, this entire thing can be identified as separate activities. So we have, you might, if you can recall it, we discussed this diagram in detail. So there are basically 4 roles, starting with strategy formulation and policy making, supervising executive activities to accountability. So it's a process. So what does managers or the board do is they understand the aspiration of the shareholders, and once the aspiration, or simply what do you want to achieve, they ask from the shareholders. You have put money to this particular company and you have hired me to work on behalf of you, so tell me, what do you want to achieve? That is understanding shareholders aspiration. So once the shareholders aspiration is communicated, the board would formulate the strategies. Business strategies, operational strategies, financial strategies, marketing strategies, whatsoever, to achieve the aspiration of shareholders. And once the strategy is formulated, then they will do policy making. What are the policies? What do we have to do? How we have to do? What and what not? Policy making. The rules for the game. Now this, you set the strategy, you give the plan, and you give the rules to play. The rules and procedures, the rules of the game. What the board management have to do, what they should not do, how they should do, everything that is policy making. It can be financial policies, marketing policies, risk management policies. That is basically the rules and the systems or procedures that is given to the board, but that is given to the management as a guidance, as a guide to achieve those strategies. Now assume financial policy. So financial policy would clearly indicate how they should manage the finance resource. It gives a guideline, systems, procedures developed by the board to management to help them achieve the strategies. Okay, then once the policies are over making, what they have to do is, now they have given the task to do, the strategy to do is there. How they should achieve that strategy, what the things has to be adhered to is also communicated as policies. And then the next important point is they have to monitor the executive activities or supervise the executive activities. Are the managers adhering to the rules and procedures that we have set above? Is it in line? The controls, say budgets. For example, you might have budgetary systems and management control systems. Likewise, different supervising systems would be there. That is to ensure that the board, the management is working in line with the strategies and the direction that the board has set initially. So what the board would do from this part is, from these activities are, they would be giving the direction. They would be setting the ground to play. They would be setting the ground to play. Strategy formulation, how they should achieve those strategies, everything is given. Now this is where the management is really going to activate this. That is, now management is doing all these things. They would be getting resources, doing planning, organizing, leading and controlling, and to achieve whatever the strategies that is being formulated, but director will have to supervise that, supervise the executive activities and ensure that they are achieving whatever the strategies and everything that you formulate. And then lastly, accountability. So we already have discussed what accountability means. That is, the board is accountable to the members of that particular entity. Who are the members? Shareholders. You are accountable to the shareholders and also to the stakeholders at large. You have to be accountable to your actions. So that is why, being accountable, you prepare your financial statements, non-financial reporting, reporting to the stakeholders, CSR reporting. So when you take the annual reports, annual report is one way of expressing the accountability. It has all the accounting statements, CSR reporting, non-financial reporting, and reporting to all the stakeholders like employees, society, likewise. So it's a process. Board roles are particularly a process. First, they understand the aspiration and formulate strategies, and they set the rules and the systems to achieve those strategies. And then after that, they supervise executive activities, and through accountability, they report back to the shareholders. So all of these four activities, this left side or rather right side is performance role or executory role. Now we know board roles can be separated into two. One is execution, the other one is supervision. So strategy formulation, policy making is execution roles, executory roles or performance roles. They have to perform. And accountability and supervising is their conform or supervisory role. Execution and supervision. Execution is on your right side, supervision is on the left side. Supervising means conformance. Executing means performance. So this yellow color box I have already explained. Now all of these roles board might not be able to do alone because it's a lot of work. So they will have to get the work done through the CEO. They will have to get the work done through the CEO. Part of the work is delegated to CEOs. So how much you delegate to the CEOs can depend. Some boards give a lot of responsibility for the CEO, whereas some board gives a little responsibility to the CEOs. So that depends. So particularly this yellow color box in the middle, the size of the box can depend from company to company. It can be very large. Very large means a lot of responsibility is given to the CEO. Or it can be very small, meaning a little responsibility is delegated to the CEO in terms of all these 4 activities or functions of the board. Everyone clear on that? We have discussed this diagram in detail in a previous lesson. It would be just a revision for you of this diagram. Everyone clear? Okay. So next few slides is I have already discussed. It elaborate more on these 4 activities. What is strategy formulation? How they do it? SWOT analysis, mission and everything. Then policy making. What is policy making? Systems, procedures that is laid down by the board to guide. See, systems, procedures given to guide. So these would be the some of the examples: financial policies, employment policies, marketing policies, and the like. Then supervising executory activity, to be able to better extract executive activities. Routine and regular management reports, supervising. Reporters, quarterly reporters, monthly board would be asking management reports. Monthly or weekly, they would have to report to the board. That is supervising. Accountability is being accountable to the members, particularly to the shareholders and other stakeholders. So how they fulfill that accountability is through reporting. Basically, in annual reports, you see lots of accountability sources. The next slide is, now we have 2 roles. I told you, we tell board has a duality role. Duality means board has 2 roles to play. One is execution, the other one is supervision. Or execution means performance, supervision means conformance. So board has to manage this duality of roles. Board have to manage this duality of roles because one person is doing execution as well as supervision. It is like you set your own exam paper and you answer it. You make the strategies and you supervise those strategies. So they have to balance this duality of roles. So this balancing is very challenging when the board is a one-tier board. Why do you say balancing the duality of board roles is challenging when it is a unitary board? Why do we say so? Why do we say balancing the board's duality role is very difficult when the board is a unitary board? And also adding to that, we say when board is a two-tier board, this duality role is very easy. Why do we say? I'm asking you the answer. We say duality role of the board is difficult when the board is a unitary board, but it is easy when the board is a two-tier board. So tell me, what is the difference between unitary board and the dual board? What is the difference between unitary board and the dual board? Answers? Only one board is there in the unitary board. And dual board, there are two boards. What are the two boards? Supervisory board and the management board. But in the unitary board, you have only the supervisory board. In dual board, supervisory board and the management board is separate. So the beauty of this is, when it is a unitary board, execution and supervision is not separate. That is done by the same person, same set of people. They set the strategies, they make the policies, and they themselves take the supervising and accountability. That is done by the same set of boards. But when it comes, or rather, conformance and performance is done by same set of boards. So it's challenging to strike a balance between these two roles. It's very challenging. Ideally, what is suggested is, now in your assignments also you have to see. But you have to see what sort of a board structure the company has. Whether it's a unitary board or a dual board. Say for instance, your particular company that you have selected is a unitary board. Then you have to see whether they strike a balance between the performance and the conformance roles. How do you clearly see it? Through the board compositions. We say, if you can recall it, executives are, so if it's a unitary board, we have two types of board members. One is non-executive directors and the other one is executive directors. So how they can easily balance the strike a balance between performance and performance is ideally suggested, let the performance part handled by the executive directors. What are the performance parts? Strategy formulation and policy making. It is easy. It's easy for executive directors to do that. No? Why? They are involved in, they are called executives because they are involved in company's activities as well. So they know company's potential. They know the ground level situations. So they can more realistically formulate whatever the strategies and the policies that is needed to achieve the set objectives. So I'm repeating again. Executive directors are called executive because they are clearly connected with many management activities. They have functions. They are responsible in some functions inside the company. They know the company very well. Company's resources, company's potential, strength, weaknesses, ground level activities. They have a better understanding of company situations. So they can formulate more realistic strategies and policies for the company. On the other hand, when it comes to non-executive directors, they are not executives. They are not involved in company. They are people who are coming from outside, not connected to the company. There are set of guidelines for non-executive directors. So types of directors we covered last week. I think I told you to go and read the corporate governance code. On the corporate governance code, you will see a set of guidelines to select a non-executive director. What are the qualifications they should have? They cannot be employed, they cannot be a past employer even, and they cannot be a director in the subsidiary company. Likewise, a lot of guidelines are there. So in your assignment, you have to see you have to look at each and every member of the board and see, especially the non-executives, and judge whether really they are non-executives or not. You have to, in your assignment, see the set of non-executive directors, whether they are really non-executives or not. Are they meeting the guidelines set by the CA code? They have to be independent. You have to judge that. You have to see whether they are really independent director. So coming back to the point that was discussing, so executive part, I told you, can be easily given to executive director. So what about the supervisory part? What they have to do? They have to supervise executive activities and be accountable. So it calls for a lot of independence. A lot of independence when it comes to conformance aspect. So that can be, since it has a lot of independence and unbiased decisions when it comes to conformance in terms of supervising and accountability, that part can be clearly done by independent non-executive directors. So that's how the board can strike a balance between performance and conformance roles, typically in a unitary board. That is served in two-tier board because execution is done by the supervisory, the management board, and the supervision is done by the supervisory board. There are two boards for two separate activities. So that is easy. Striking a balance between execution and performance is easy when it comes to two-tier board. One-tier board, it's a challenge, but if you really think about it, you have executives and non-executives, that is also easy. The mix of it, when you have a good mix of executives and non-executives, even in a one-tier board, striking a balance between conformance and performance is easy. Understood, everyone? Now, is my sound clear now? I'm waiting for your answers. Did you understand and is the sound clear? Okay. So moving forward, board committees, functions and authority. Now this is a one interesting area on the course and also in your assignment as well. Board committees. This is one area that you have to really look at in your assignment as well. So you have heard about remuneration committees, nomination committees, risk management committees, so many different audit committees, so many different committees. So today you will learn what is the purpose of having these committees are. And in your assignment, you have to see whether this purpose is met and whether the specifications, are they adhering to good practices or not. Say for example, remuneration committee, there are set of practices that the board has to maintain. So you have to, that is clearly given in the CA code of best practices. So you have to study the context of the business, your company first, and refer to the CA code of best practices and see whether it is in line with good practices or not. If not, then you will have to give recommendations. Committees ටික අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ committees වල good practices කියලා කිසියම් guidelines ටිකක් තියෙනවා code of best practices වල. ඔයගොල්ලෝ company situation එක හොඳට කියවලා code of best practices study කරලා බලන්න ඕනේ company තියෙන practices good practices ද bad practices ද ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා නම් එතන recommendations දෙන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා. So when it comes to boards, there are two reasons why a board has subcommittees. Now we have one board, say a unitary board. Under the board, it could have different subcommittees. The entire board of directors are again clustered into different subcommittees. Under board of directors, we have audit committee, remuneration committee, nomination committee, risk management committee, different subcommittees. So what is the purpose of this? Two reasons is, one reason is to monitor the board activities. One reason is we need to have subcommittees to monitor the board activities. In other words, in order to fulfill the oversight roles, to monitor the activities of the board. So these committees are typically formed with independent directors. We have independent and executive directors both. So what the independent non-executive directors do is, they have a set of board committees to overlook the activities of the entire board, to enable independent directors to meet separately from the board as a whole. Now you have the entire board, a particular group set of independent directors meet separately to monitor the activities, to fulfill the oversight role. That is one reason why we need to have subcommittees. The other reason is to reduce the burden of the board as a whole. Now doing all these strategy making, policy making, supervising to accountability is not an easy task as we say. It has a lot of work. So to reduce that burden, reduce the workload of the board, we have subcommittees. A subcommittee is for strategy, a subcommittee is for policy, a subcommittee is for accountability. Likewise, to reduce the burden. So two reasons. One is in order to fulfill the oversight role. The other one is to reduce the burden. To reduce the burden. So these committees, the first type of committees are also called as standing committees. That is there for any company. Standing committees. Those are new, not new. Whenever there are corporate governance, these committees are there, standing committees. So let's see what these committees are. You have already heard. Audit committee. Audit committee is one such committee that provides oversight of the management. Basically, the committees that provide oversight of management is audit committee, remuneration committee, and nomination committee. These are standing committees. These are standing committees of any organization that you would see. Audit committee, nomination committee, and remuneration committee. So as told, audit committee comprised with independent directors. So I have quoted the CA Sri Lanka Corporate Governance Code. So this is the guideline for Sri Lankan companies to audit committees. I will read this only. The board should establish an audit committee exclusively of non-executive directors. Exclusively of non-executive directors. With a minimum of 3 non-executive directors, of whom at least 2 should be independent. What does that say? 3 non-executives, at least 2 independent. Why? We have 2 types of executives, independent and connected. So one can be connected, that means it has to be exclusively of non-executives, 3 members, 2 has to be independent, other 2 can be connected. That is what it means. We have 2 types of non-executive directors, independent and connected, that we learned last week. There are more non-executive directors, the majority should be independent. The committee should be chaired by an independent non-executive director. The board should satisfy itself that at least one member of the audit committee has recent and relevant experience in financial reporting and control. So that is the guideline of CA Sri Lanka Code for audit committee. So now there are more on the guidelines. What are the responsibilities, what they have to do? So what I have quoted here is just the composition. So in your assignment, for all the companies that you have taken, these standing committees are there. Audit committee, nomination committee, remuneration committee. These 3 committees are there for sure. So you have to see composition, whether it is in line with the corporate governance code. It says everyone non-executive. Okay. At least the 3 members, 2 has to be independent. Or if it is more, majority has to be independent. See whether it is the case. If it is not, then you have recommendations. Then you have your recommendations. So provide a bridge between external auditors and the main board. Accountable to the board, review the scope and outcome of the audit, and normal auditing responsibilities are there. Moving forward, remuneration committee again consists wholly and mainly of independent outside directors. Why? It is established to provide oversight to the management. Because there are a lot of debacles in remuneration of top executives and directors, that they are being excessively paid, excessive remuneration packages. To stop that, to monitor the executives and directors being paid excessively too much, there's a separate committee for remuneration. Because if you look at the past collapses that has taken place, a lot of collapses, I mean, not lot, but there are, yes, a lot of collapses are there because of the reason that the directors are excessively paid. Money is wasted. So to determine the remuneration packages and to monitor the executive payment, separate committees formed, remuneration committee. Wholly of independent directors. So I have given the CA code here. It is also say non-executive directors and majority has to be independent. So the last standing committee that is that can be seen in common is nomination committee. Again, wholly or mainly of independent outside directors. Nomination committee ensures that whoever the board that is being nominated has a good skill, knowledge and experience. They ensure they take the maximum effort to recruit the best set of people. See the last few points. They ensure the skill, knowledge, experience, succession planning. That is, now board has to have a plan of success for training and developments. Nomination committee do that planning thing. For trainings, for management, likewise, you have to have programs, the succession planning. That is what it is. So nomination committee reduce dominant directors, chairman and CEO. Having a nomination committee can result in many controversies. Now, nomination committee is there to recruit the best set of people and avoid any dominance. It can also have controversies because, what do you think? Rather than telling the answer, why do you think having a nomination committee can also have controversies? ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඇයි ප්‍රශ්න ඇති ගානේ committee එකක් ගත්තේ. But having a committee can also result in problems. Why do you think? Why do you think it may create problems? Not now. Favoritism, yes. They cannot create the way they want anyway, because board it would be approved by the annual general meeting of shareholders. However, now sometimes now they are independent directors. Now they might not know the best suitable directors for the company. In the sense, now existing directors, they might have developed a culture inside the company. Can you remember the managerial hegemony and class hegemony theories that we talked about? Board has different clusters. They think they are, very exclusive groups. Likewise. So sometimes the recruited person might not be matching to the culture, might not be matching to the existing class of directors. Those problems can be there. That can be there. Those are where the controversies can occur. Other board members might not like the new board member. So there can be conflicts. That is one example of having controversies. So these are the commonly seen board committees, standing committees in most of the companies that was specifically established to overlook the activities of the board. Audit committee, remuneration committee and nomination committee. However, with the recent developments and the experienced collapses, more committees have evolved. Governance and compliance committees, corporate ethics committees. Now, ethics, a good weight is given to ethics in today's businesses. So these committees too have evolved in the present context. So in your organizations also, you have to see whether now these first three committees, it would be there for sure. If they are not there, then there is a problem. Then you have to recommend them. Apart from that, there can be few of these companies that is established for the purpose of oversight, to provide oversight for the management, to overlook the management activities. So this is one aspect as to why the board of committees are established, to provide an oversight activity. The other reason is to reduce the board burden, the burden of the board, to reduce the workload of board of directors. So you see these committees: executive committee, finance committee, strategy planning committee, risk committee, technology committee, many ad hoc committees. Committees for projects. Likewise, these are not standing committees, but you can, some committees are there for a specific time only. Assume a project, there can be a committee for project that is established to reduce the the burden of the board. It would be there only till the project is over. It would not be their ongoing concern. But if it is nomination, remuneration, and audit committees, ongoing concern, those committees are there. But these committees that is there to reduce the burden can come and go when and necessary. When and where necessary, it can come and go. So in your companies, I want you all to clearly identify these set of committees. The committees that is there to reduce the burden, and the committees that is there to provide oversight activities of the management. The last slide of today's slide set is corporate transparency. So according to your understanding, we have already talked about the word transparency. What do you mean by corporate transparency? The word transparency we discussed in 4 pillars of corporate governance. So with that knowledge, what is corporate transparency? Yes, transparency is you are disclosing your information. You have to report everything without hiding all material matters. Exactly. You have to report everything, not the sensitive matters, but everything you have to report back. Transparency. You cannot hide things. If it is material, yes, you might choose to not to disclose, but otherwise you have to report. So reporting, traditionally, it was through audited reports, audited financial statements, traditionally. But today, do you see only the audited reports? What else do you see? Traditionally, it was just the financial statements and that's it, audited reports. But in today's context, when it comes to corporate transparency, what else do you see more than the audited reports? Websites, yes, what else? Now, in the annual reports itself, you have audited reports. What else we have? You have a lot of narrations. Audited reports are numbers. In today's context, narrations have become more important than the numbers. We really do not look at the statements, are we? Today's stakeholders or even us, we don't even look at the statements, but rather we are not interested with the numbers. We are more interested with the narrations of the chairman, managing director. You have managing director's discussion. Everyone reads that. Managing director's discussion, they are telling how the company have performed, what the company's future plans are, and everything. Those are corporate transparency. Earlier, it was just the annual reports, just the fine audited statements. But today, it has evolved in a way that now the companies tell their story, the story of current performance and the anticipated future. Today's in context, the corporates, rather than just putting their numbers out, they tell the story of the current performance and the story of the anticipated future. They have a lot of CSR reporting, stakeholder reporting, a lot of transparencies are there. So these are the at least least components that should be there. At least these things has to be there. See, financial performance, company risks, future developments, stakeholders, CSR. Today you will see not only the financials but also a lot of reporting is visible. So in your company, you have to see whether you have corporate transparencies. Now see, now there are a lot of elements that I discussed on that is relevant to your assignment. When it comes to board, a lot of elements are there for you to see. Board structure, board composition, and board, whether the composition is correct or wrong. Board committees, what are the committees? What is the characteristics and responsibilities of each of these committees? And corporate transparency, corporate secretary, lot of things I have already discussed. Now, more than 50% of your assignment you should be able to finish. And the next lesson is also the continuation of board. That too would cover a lot of area on the board. And also I forgot, we talked about chairman and CEO, cross directorships, a lot of things. So yeah, I will tell you when you will have to report the progress. Till that time you can progress with this assignment whenever we finish these lessons. Now we are finishing board today, this week, so you can finish the board of directors part in your assignment as well. So we shall make a 1 minute break, take a 1 minute break, and we'll move on to the next slide, that is directors and board structure part 2.